Hey guys, welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. My name is Denise and I'm here with Neil. Today is Sunday, April 12th. My God, it's almost tax day. So today we're going to go over some
Did
local
you do your
issues.
taxes? Did you do your
No,
taxes?
no. I'm going to be marathoning that tonight and tomorrow. My mom's I did. Hers are done. They're submitted. I'm gonna dig up every possible thing I can, every possible little write-off I can. So, honestly, I'm here, revolution, man, revolution. You see my
Time
earrings? What do
is
you think of
ticking.
it?
Time is ticking. Get that
Yeah, well,
done. Everybody get your taxes done. April 15th is coming, whether you like it or not.
ugh. So, anyway, that's what I'll be doing. So, in this segment, we are going to discuss some local stuff. It's, kinda juicy, but not juicy, but some things that we wanna, clear up and address. First of all, there's still a lot of talk going around about there not being a bulk pickup, and, I discussed with Neil last week, I went to the Spill the Tea event, and there was a vote taken, and about two-thirds of the room was in favor of having the bulk pickup. So they went into session on Wednesday, and they did agree that they're gonna go forward with it. So we're gonna get notifications of what the dates are. I believe it's at the beginning of May, maybe a week or two into May or a week before, but we should be getting, information about that posted on the website and possibly flyers in your mailbox over the next couple of weeks. Do you have any comments you wanna add to that?
Listen, I'm one of those people. If the sacrifice this year needed to be made for book pickup, I would have been okay with it. I think there's a lot of people out there. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said on Tuesday night. You're paying a lot for taxes. Okay. And I think people are genuinely frustrated these days, that, that they're receiving less and less services for the taxes that they're paying. And this is part of that.
Yeah.
And people are now unwilling to make those sacrifices as we are seeing more and more, budgets be turned upside down. I mean, there's been a lot of mismanagement, and this isn't just like the town of Wallkill getting mismanaged. We've been hearing about this all across the country. We heard about this in New York City with Mamdani. We've heard about this in other municipalities throughout the United States, of budgets being upside down because the previous boards did not manage the finances correctly.
Right.
And what are we seeing? We're seeing, a lot of cut. Like New York City, the millionaire head of the assembly down there, or the city legislature, basically slashed services like left and right, and she called it cost savings. So we're seeing these things all across the country because at the end of the day, taxing your residents via property taxes is unbearable for your residents, and they want to know why there is this gap. They've been
Yes.
paying taxes all these years, and the problem is that because of mismanagement and lack of transparency and all these other things, you know, money has been wasted.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So we're discovering that now, which kinda let's move on to some other stuff going on here. Um, I think, one of the issues is I think there was some discussion going on regarding positions that, apparently the supervisor is firing people, and that's actually not the case.
No.
What's happened here is from what I understand, is the previous administration budgeted to hire 2 more new police officers, and 2 existing police officers, I guess within the last year, left. They retired or they moved on. And so I guess one of the ways Frank can kind of balance that budget is to not hire those 2 new people at this time or refill the positions of the officers that have left. So can you give us some comments about that, and how that impacts the town, whether positively or negatively?
Listen, I um, this has been the Republican talking point for the last decade about police in the town of Wallkill. Town of Wallkill was rated having the lowest crime rate in New York State. It was one of the safest towns in New York State. Okay?
Good for
Period.
us.
All right. They bragged about this. Why do we keep needing to add officers at $200,000 a pop?
That's their
Right?
salaries?
No. Here's what people don't understand. They get benefits, right? So within probably about 3 years of hiring the person, the officer, their base salary is going to be roughly about $80,000, $90,000. So you only get the discount their first couple of years. Like it's
Right.
sort of like a training discount type of thing.
Right. Right.
Okay. Or, but then you start adding overtime. Once you start adding in the overtime, they're making over $100,000. Then you add $40,000 in retirement benefits. Then you add another, $20,000 in
Health.
$40,000 in healthcare, $20,000 in retirement. You start adding those benefits up. Okay, it's another $100,000
Wow.
in benefits. So each officer costs you $200,000 in your budget, right? We have roughly 46 officers in town. The budget for the police department is roughly makes up about 40%, 35 to 40% of the town's entire budget,
Wow.
okay, for their general fund. So this needs to stop. The conversation needs to stop right there, because here's the problem. Every municipality, their budget for their police department roughly is about, I want to say 25 to 30% of their entire budget. That's the standard. We are way above standard. We have gone way above standard. And it's because of people like Eric Valentin and Mark Coyne and George Serrano and Eric Johnson, who have added 2 officers every year for probably the last 10 years. I got in office, we had roughly about, I think it was like 14 or 15 full-time officers. We're now around 46. Okay. In our town. Again, we have more officers in our town, more full-time officers in our town, right, than the town of Newburgh, who has more crime than us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, does that I mean, the city has its own force, City of Newburgh, correct?
So
Or
is the
are
city
they
of Middletown. Yes,
right, right.
city of Newburgh and the city of city of Middletown both have their own police forces. Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Listen, I've done this. I see, the whole thing is I noticed when I was there this trend, and it was a very disturbing trend, because you're not raising your taxes, and they were sitting there banking on getting what we call the soft money in, the sales taxes and some of these other taxes to make up for the revenues, okay, that we were spending.
well, what
Okay,
about
so
the also ticket revenues and stuff like that?
listen, that was going down because most of the 80% of all the tickets written for the town of Wallkill were written by the state police, and the state police moved down towards towards the Monroe area. So we actually lost some of that revenue. There was a loss of revenue there as they started shifting more towards the Monroe area, the southern area of Orange County. And so what people don't seem to understand, okay, is how this operates, right? You take in money, you spend money, and you have to take in the exact amount. What you spend should be what you take in. You shouldn't be spending more than what you take in. And what we
Well,
saw was a disturbing trend when I got into office, when I was there. They were budgeting a budget deficit of around $1 million when I first got on the board. Right? This was a problem. I had talked about it. I was told, don't worry about it because the way they explained it is that they overestimated expenses and underestimated revenues, and therefore blah blah blah. And we saw when the comptroller's office, that's exactly what happened, right? When you over budget your expenses, and when you sit there and say you're going to spend more than you actually do, and you say you're going to receive less than you actually do, there's the idea that you may actually end up bringing in more money. And they did. They added fund balance my first couple of years on the board. So that's when I sort of came out and I was like, you're putting forth a dishonest budget. You're not explaining to the residents how. And what did we see? The state comptroller's office said the same thing. That draft report that I released last year, okay, said exactly that. This is not an honest budget that's being put forth. Okay.
right.
So that's what we saw. So what's happening now is just a correction. Now you're saying, well, they added all these positions. They are the ones that spent all this money, but we don't have the funds to pay for it. So what do we have to do? Well, we don't want to lay people off. Nobody wants to lay people off, right? And put people on unemployment. So the idea is if there's a vacancy, don't refill the vacancy.
There you go. You can recover that missing funds.
Right. And you're talking about $200,000 per employee. So if you're talking four employees, particularly police officers, because that's really what we're talking about here, right? You're all of a sudden that's $800,000 back in your budget, right? you
Guess
know,
what? We can get bulk pickup now.
that's I mean, you got to remember we were $3 million budget deficit, right? That's what we have. And if you listen to Frank, it's actually higher than that because we borrowed from this year's funds for last
Yes.
year, right? So I think he was saying that it was roughly around $4 million budget deficit that we had
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we needed to figure out. They budgeted $3 million of that. So the other $1 million came from last year. So what are we doing? You have to make it up. So
Right.
if you don't want to lay people off, then yeah, the first thing you got to do is you got to figure out, all right, where can we make cuts? Well, they budgeted 2 new officers this year. So let's not hire those people. We're on a hiring freeze, so we're not going to hire those 2 positions, right? And we're not going to hire and those 2 positions that were vacant from last year because we didn't fill them or people had left.
Left.
We're just not going to refill those positions either. Done. That's right off the start. Okay. I think everybody can agree we are one of the safest communities in Orange County. We're one of the safest communities in New York State. We can live with the number of officers that we have now.
And just for context for people that are watching, how long have we always been this safe community? I mean, is it like something that just came up because they hired these people, or has it been that way for years?
We've been a pretty safe community for a long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There really hasn't been an escalation. And when you hear, crime has increased 10% a year or something like that. Well,
Yeah.
our population growth has been 10% a year.
So it's
So
relative.
right, if you're looking at it, it has nothing to do with the police officers and number of police officers you have. We've been growing our police department, by 20% a year, okay, while the population has been growing at 10% a year, and it hasn't stopped the increase.
Right.
So again, because police don't really stop crime, they respond to crime. What stops crime is having good social programs and the idea like we are going to help people so people don't have to go out and commit crimes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a logic that people don't really like to face. They just assume that people are just always criminal, and there are people that are like that, but not that's not the norm. Um, so, all right, so there we go with that. I'd love to hear from anybody who's got comments on this. And if you're watching from a different community, by all means, drop a comment below. Let us know what's going on in your town, and if this sounds like something familiar, let's get that conversation going. That's the reason why we do this. S-
And
s-
what I would like to also mention, if you don't mind,
oh
because
yeah,
we're
go ahead.
talking about positions, right? Um, that doesn't also mean that, there having been there and having worked in this municipality in the town of Wallkill and seen that there are a lot of management issues that stemmed from the board, that the board did as it related to putting people in the right place. So there were hiring problems. They hired some unqualified people. They hired people who weren't, who didn't have the skill set needed to do the position. Well, what do you do now? If the work isn't being done the way it is supposed to be done, or people aren't being paid what they should be being paid in this marketplace, okay? Well, you're two things are occurring, right? You're going to risk losing people to the current marketplace,
Yeah,
which has happened by some people leaving because the market has demanded higher salaries than what the town is paying. And then there were unqualified people, so you have to move people around to make sure that
right.
qualified people are doing the job because they wanted to hire their friends. Keep in mind, that's
Yeah,
what they did. I talked about that numerous times. They hired George's brother. They hired Councilman Johnson's kid. They hired people that just didn't weren't qualified for the jobs.
right, right. And that ends up being a financial liability because then the messes they create have to be cleaned up by people that have to come in and clean up the mess. And so,
Right.
it creates twice as much work
It's
when you
one thing if you want to hire somebody and train them, but they didn't even want to train them. It was we want to show the world that they're qualified. We're going to put them in this job that they're not qualified for and just let them go and then yell at them later when the job doesn't get performed the way they wanted it to because they didn't know that they needed to do that thing. I mean, this goes to show you the level of mismanagement that was done in the past. And now you have a current supervisor that gets handed this what you call a shit sandwich. You get handed a shit sandwich, and so what do you have to do? You have to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah. Mhm. And here we are. So it's interesting, just connected to this. I wanted to you'll get a kick out of this. So, frequently we mention that there is a slot page out there, a slander page that likes to just tear things apart and spread a lot of misinformation out there. And I just want to address one thing that came out a few days ago. It actually gave me a good laugh. Apparently, I've been added to some mysterious ethics board within the town. I didn't even know it. They're spreading this shit. And your mom and I, we're on some strange ethics
You're
board.
on the you're on the ethics board. Yeah, you guys are on the ethics board of the town's ethics board. Yes.
I didn't know that. When did I get on
Yeah.
that? Nobody asked me.
Reorg. You guys were put on in January in reorg.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. What do I do? I don't even know what the job is for that.
So this is another misleading thing, right? So, and this is what's so frustrating. The ethics board responds to ethics complaints that are filed with the town. So if somebody has an ethics complaint, right, it would go to the ethics board. What people don't understand, okay, again, this is how misleading this is, and this is what really ticks me off, and why I'm owed an apology, and my mother's owed an apology, and you're owed an apology, and everybody who serves on that ethics board is owed an apology. The way it was set up by these assholes, because I remember exactly how it was set up by Eric Valentin, and you go back, Ed Diana, Dan Depew, all these people, the way it was originally set up was that in order for a complaint to get referred to the ethics board, the town board has to review the complaint first and refer it to the ethics board. So it had to go to the supervisor first. People would file them. The supervisor would never bring it to the town board. Never happened. So my mother served on the ethics board for Republicans. She was on the ethics board for Dan Depew and Ed Diana and Frank Dendanto the first time around. Okay?
Oh, I did
so
not
she
know that.
served under Democrats and Republicans. George Serrano came in and he decided to put in all his buddies on the ethics board. So the ethics board was all the George Serrano people. So Frank came in and he wanted to have more of a working ethics board again. So he put on people that he knew he could rely on that were going to do the job and be ethical about it. My mom is one of the most ethical people, and I'm not just talking about her from the standpoint that, but she is. I mean, she served under Republicans.
I can attest to that.
She was one of the people. So she was one of the people that did the first salary analysis for the town. So the town didn't have the idea of didn't know where they stood with other municipalities in relation to paying the supervisor and the town board. Okay. So she is one of the first people that went in and talked about raises, because this was at a time when the town board and the town supervisor hadn't gotten raises in years. Okay. So in order to be able to tell, so my mom was one of the first people to come in and do that analysis, because the supervisor at the time didn't want to just give raises out like George Serrano did. He wanted to make sure that ethically that giving the raises was appropriate given what other municipalities were paying their supervisors and town boards. So my mom did that analysis, and she was very good, and I saw that analysis. I was not on the town board at the time. This is actually before my time on the board that this occurred. And she did a very good job in putting that analysis together. Okay. Despite the fact that Mr. Valentin at one point in time said that she didn't know anything about finances and money and all that kind of crap. Okay.
She's an
And said
accountant,
that
right?
no, she raised 2 accountants though.
Okay. I
She
stand
raised 2
corrected.
accountants, but she knows her stuff financial. She knows about finances. There's no doubt that she knows about finances. So she is the one that was tasked. That's the type of thing that the ethics board can put together for you. They can do those type of things. And the idea of if somebody did file an ethics complaint, then it would have to go to the town board for a vote first. That's the one thing they don't like to say. They want to point out, oh, that these are these people are friendly with Frank, so the ethics board isn't going to investigate anything that's not the way it works. You have to go to the town board first. Okay? but they don't want you to know that, because then that point highlights the fact that what they had been doing for so many years is suppressing any violations that may have occurred, and any ethics that it was brought, because the town board had to vote first, and they never even brought anything to the town board. They refused to bring it to the town board for even a vote, for even a referral.
Wow,
So
that's interesting.
so you have to understand how the government was set up to begin with before start criticizing it. And here's my issue, right? You have somebody running for supervisor now on the Republican line who is going around spreading these lies. And one of two things should be occurring with this. Either she should be denouncing this page as political hackery, and saying, I have nothing to do with this page. Or she should be apologizing to you, my mom, and everybody else on the ethics board for calling them unethical.
Yeah.
Because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. We all live in this community. I lived with the unethical behavior for 8 fucking years, and nobody said a goddamn word except me, right? And I was told, oh, that's not happening, yet it happened. All of it happened.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't want to hear it anymore. I just don't want to hear it anymore. Right. You're owed an apology. My mother's owed an apology. And no offense, but that woman who's running for town supervisor on the Republican line, she should be ashamed of herself for allowing this stuff to be pushed, right, to win an election. Screw
Well,
you.
let's talk about that because a lot of the and that's just to clarify what Neil is saying here is that she is parroting a lot of the propaganda that is being spread by this AI slop slander page that we talk about a lot. And that is really concerning because it also means that she's connected to these people. Right? These are the people that led to the financial disaster that we're in right now. These people led to the loss of the bond rating that we have right now. These people led to being robbed of over $400,000 right out from under our noses. Nobody in our accounting in their accounting department caught that. The bank caught it. So, I don't know. If I was running on the Republican line, I think I would be wanting to move away from those people as much as possible. But it just kind of demonstrates that she's connected to them because she's spreading the same lines of BS that were coming out before. Look, she wants to come on here and clarify that for us. Please do. Tell us what's going on here. What do you think?
I mean, the idea of, listen, I 8 years you had these people lying about your money and how your money was being managed. Okay. Basically, you have somebody running who wants to continue those lies,
Right.
right? And you have somebody in office who was also running, right, who is trying to shed light on the situation. Okay. Right. And this is a situation. Stop. You lost the goddamn bond rating, for God's sakes. Right.
And kept it
You had
hidden for a year and a
You had
half.
$400,000 stolen from the town. You have no moral authority here. Okay? Like, that's what I find is funny, is that they somehow think that they have moral authority
I know.
to say the shit that they're saying, for whatever reason, because the other side is saying these. This isn't propaganda. You lost the town its bond rating. There is an alarm going off saying we need to fix these issues. If you are not here trying to help fix these issues, then you have become a hindrance. And I'm sorry, that's everybody in the town. This is all of us now. All of us are
Yes.
now in this. As much as when I ran, I tried to tell people this is what's going on. And some people said, oh, well, we don't believe you. And that's fine. But now you're here. You had the opportunity to fix it. You chose not to. Okay, you allowed it to get worse, and now you're in an even worse situation than you were before. That's what happens when you mismanage finances. If you did the same thing to your personal finances, you'd all of a sudden be going, well, I have to cut my budget. I'm no longer allowed to go to Starbucks, and I'm no longer allowed
Yeah.
to do these things. And now all of a sudden I have to get rid of my Netflix subscription, and I have to get, this is the shit that you're having to do now. You're
Yeah.
now in a situation. You bankrupted the town. Good job.
Good job. So
Good job.
there you have it, folks. There you have it, folks. Um, let us know what you think in the comments. Obviously, if you're a resident, would love to hear from you. And also, if you're getting anything out of this, if you're enjoying this content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And click that bell so you get notified when new videos drop. And always be here for our Tuesday night live stream. That's when you can have an opportunity to engage with us personally and give us your direct comments on what's going on. All right. Oh, one
And
quick,
one quick thing
one,
before you get us off
I,
is we are also available for a debate, to moderate a debate. We're available to all candidates interested in coming on and sharing. If we misrepresented something, come on and talk with us. Allow us to ask you questions. Let's have a conversation. So I understand a lot of people may think what we're saying may not necessarily be true. I've heard that a million times. And here's the thing. We have offered our platform to anybody, the Republicans, Democrats, you name it, right, to come on here and discuss with us your platform, what you're running on, and some of the things that you said, and defend those issues. We've had the supervisor on a few times, and he's more than happy to answer questions that we've put forth. So we offer that to the opposing candidate, Jill. She can come on anytime and talk with us as well as any of the councilman candidates from not only Town of Wallkill, but from anywhere. We want to hear from you. So please, please come on, right? And we could also offer up our services for debate. I
yes.
understand local debates are difficult. I understand that we don't have any local newspapers anymore. Right. This is pretty much it. So, feel free, like, come on, bring a debate. You should be able to come on and be able to handle having your opponent talk about their issues and you talking about your issues, right, in a debate type format. And
Yeah.
Denise and I are more than happy to offer up our services. And as I've stated earlier, if you don't like me and Denise as being your moderators, right, you can also choose one of the moderators of your choice as well. And what we can do is do one of those debate formats where I represent, picked by one side, you get to pick the other side, and Denise gets to moderate the middle, where she gets to moderate me and the other side to make sure that everybody is being appropriate and following the rules. Okay. So please, 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 reach out to us. We would love to hear from
You
you.
can
And
we should give them a way to contact us, which is
yes.
you can send an email to TOWTalk TOWTalk at TOWTalkPodcast.com. And I'll put that on the screen below, and I'll put that in the comments below. And I want to add, just as one final thought with regard to that slot page we talk about, um, the person who runs that page has shut off comments completely. So it is simply their opinion, their story, and nobody can jump in and say, "Well, wait a minute, this, I disagree with that." And so, so that's the reason why we're inviting Jill or, and any other opposing candidate to hop on here and give us your perspective on these items and your opinions here. Um, that's a way to keep the conversation going and to be able to hopefully get a balance between both sides and put forth, um, the best candidate and put forth the best legislation for that benefits the town.
The reason the reason why they cut off comments is fairly simple and easy, because of the fact that they're lying to you. They're trying to put forth, right, their narrative. Anytime anybody is unwilling to debate you, unwilling to listen to what you have to say, and unwilling to allow you to speak, right? That means that they're trying to hide the truth. This happened to me on the town board, okay, where towards the end, my final 2 years, right, they had a clerk who managed the sound system, and every time I spoke, he would cut off my mic.
No shit, really?
Yes. You can go back and watch the videos. Larry would constantly cut off my mic, right, to prevent me from being heard by the public, because of the fact
Wow.
that the questions I was asking were good questions. The things I was asking for were appropriate, and I should be asking them, and everybody should have been asking them. But if the public doesn't know that I'm asking for them, then they could turn around and say that I never asked for that, which is what they did, right? So, right, this is the childish behavior, right, and illegal behavior, mind you, right, that they consistently did when they were in office.
That's First Amendment stuff right there, right?
It's not
Violating
First
your
Amendment, it's open meetings laws. They're
open.
violating open meetings laws by doing that. I mean, like it's a matter of record. And what you're doing is you're preventing a sitting board member from adding to the record, right? And part of having a record is if a board member dissents on anything or asks questions, those things need to be part of the record to ensure that if somebody goes back and says, wait a minute, what happened here? Did somebody ask? I mean, that was one of the questions that the comptroller's office came in. They said, did you ask for these things? Where is the public record of you asking for these things? And I would have to show them. But in certain instances, it didn't exist because they cut it from the record. It was
Interesting.
only
Good.
the fact that Louisa was keeping written minutes too that it actually got part of the record.
Oh, good for Louisa.
Yes.
Um, so so there you have it, folks. So if you have any questions or comments, like I said, maybe you're from a neighboring town or a town somewhere across the country that experiences this type of issues. Definitely want to hear from you. It's a great way to network and engage. And we're going to wind up here. We've got more content coming for you. So, but in the meantime, if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That helps us to get our message out to other people, and it helps other people to find us. And always like and share. Invite, again, leave a comment below. And remember, every Tuesday we are live. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're subscribed and you got the little bell clicked, you'll be notified when we go live. And we will see you then. In the meantime, take care, guys. We love you.
Peace out.